Nobody's looking to shank you. When you get into the higher institutions, when people are doing, a ton of time and there's no way you can benefit them, then you got a little more problem.
Maybe if he be in a camp type situation, that's a possibility. But based on the lifestyle and what he's done and what he's accomplished, if he had to go behind those bars for a lot of years, I think that he may commit.
When Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison, the reactions were immediate: shock, confusion, disbelief. But for Michael Francesi, a former capo in the Colombo crime family who spent years behind bars, the biggest problem for Diddy is yet to come. Normally, nobody's looking to shank you. When you get into the higher institutions, when people are doing, a ton of time and there's no way you can benefit them, then you got a little more problem. Maybe if he be in a camp-type situation, that's a possibility. But based on the lifestyle and what he's done and what he's accomplished, if he had to go behind those bars for a lot of years, I think that he may commit. Francis explained that despite the headlines, Did's legal team managed to navigate a highly volatile situation. The judge, in his view, weighed everything: the years of controversy, the intense media coverage, and the emotional testimony from Diddy's family. In the end, Diddy walked away with just over 4 years, a sentence that many insiders believe could have been much harsher. Obviously, he's disappointed, although he really shouldn't be. I think, a 4-year sentence here with already credit for the year or so that he has in, I think he did very well with respect to all of the drama and all of the circumstance around this trial. There was a lot of bad stuff out there, and I'm not saying I'm not passing judgment on that, but it just looked really bad and he could have gotten up to 10 years or 11 years. So I think the judge, took everything into consideration. I think his family today, made a very good plea for him. And I think he did very well. That's my opinion. So what in your experience, like your own experience and other, inmates that you've seen go through it and then show back up at the, other cell block, how do they take this? Do they bury their head in the pillow and cry, or do they keep their head high and just pack up their stuff and wait for their assigned new prison? Like, tell me everything. Well, everybody's different. I'm sure he went back was somewhat disappointed. So he's probably, dwelling on that. Hey, it could have been differently. Maybe I should have gotten out. Maybe he's a little bit upset, a little bit angry. I get it. All those emotions come into play. There's a process that determines where someone like Diddy ends up. Judges can recommend a facility, but the Bureau of Prisons makes the final decision. Because of Diddy's fame and the public attention surrounding his case, it's unlikely he'll be placed in a minimum security camp. Those facilities, often nicknamed clubbed, are reserved for low-risk inmates with open grounds, limited barriers, and a more relaxed atmosphere. But Diddy's high profile makes him a security concern, meaning a medium security prison is far more probable. He's got to get ready. He'll spend a couple of weeks there until they designate him to a new facility. And he'll be a lot better off in prison than he is in the federal jail. At least there you can move around and you got some freedom on the yard and things like that. My thought is he'll collect himself, get himself together. There are ways for him to improve himself. They have the Bureau of Prisons now has a drug program, and if you're allowed to get into that drug program, you can knock as much as 18 months off your sentence. Now, I don't know if he'll qualify, if they'll allow him to go in, but he'll probably start to think about, okay, what can I do to reduce my time? Now, that's what everybody thinks when you get in there. Is there any way we can better ourselves? He's thinking about what facility they're going to send him to. I'm sure he spoke to his lawyers and he asked his lawyers to put in a facility that's close to his home, close to his family, a low or medium level. I don't think he'll get into camp. Though, does your request actually count? I thought the feds just put you where it works for them. I didn't think you get a say in it. Well, here's the thing, you could ask the judge to recommend. The Bureau of Prisons doesn't have to go along with the judge's recommendation, but it does help a little bit. They do try to sometimes satisfy the judge's request. You can put in a request and sometimes they'll honor it, sometimes they won't. Francis knows what that world looks like. He recalled his own time in both camps and higher security prisons. Minimum security camps had no fences, just open perimeters and trust. But mistakes, transfers, and oversights could easily land someone back in a tougher environment. He emphasized that Did's experience will depend less on where he goes and more on how he handles himself once there. Is the camp of the lowest security, and therefore more paddle and tennis and all the other things in what they call Club Fed or Camp Cupcake. Yeah, they moved me to camp by accident at one point, and there's no fences or anything like that, and I wasn't there for too long because they realized they made a mistake and put me back in the medium security. But they tell you when you get there, listen, there's no fences. If you want to leave, you can leave, but when we catch you, we're going to add another 5 years onto your sentence. And while I was in that camp for 2 months, each month somebody ran away. They always try to do that, but yeah, he's thinking of that. Yeah, he's thinking of that. Well, a medium security is not that bad. Quickly go back though. Go back to that piece about he's high profile so he won't get a camp. Why wouldn't he? What I thought in a camp, nobody's going to shank him because again, they want out. You know, the overriding factor there, I believe, is he's a guy with a lot of money. And I'll tell you, this happened to me when I went in there because of the profile I had, because of the way they wrote me up. You know, I had everybody and their brother inmate trying to do a deal with me when I got out. You know, a business deal, they need money. You know, because of the fact that he's a money guy, I think he's going to have more friends than he will enemies. And in a medium security, normally nobody's looking to shank you. When you get into the higher institutions, when people are doing, you know, a ton of time and there's no way you can benefit them, then you got a little more problem. But in a medium security, I don't think he'll have an issue at all. I really don't. He can be too much of a benefit to inmates that are always looking for something, and he could be a golden ticket for some people, at least in their mind. For Diddy, those moments will test him more than any courtroom ever could. The isolation, the stripped-down lifestyle, the distance from everything familiar. It forces a kind of honesty that fame never allows. So what does Diddy do now? Well, his lawyers are trying to keep the hip-hop mogul close to his family in a safer and more rehabilitative environment. Gene Deal, his former bodyguard, though, doesn't believe that Diddy deserves any sympathy he's getting right now for the sentence. The artist got him dropping to his knees at the time of the verdict, crying on the chair. My heart goes out and it says, fuck him and feed him beans. I can care less about his sadness. I can care less about him being in pain. I can care less about what he has to be faced with in court or in jail. Now I don't have no remorseful feelings for him, bro. You understand? This is somebody that at one time I would have given my own life for. And to know this was trying to get people to take my life because I was trying to teach him to be right by people and tell them to be right by people. I have no remorse for this dude, bro, to see him like that. I know there is a God. And you can feel all the way you want to feel about me, you can say whatever you want to say about me, but karma is a mother. And if it ever gets back to you when you have done somebody wrong, not just me, I'm not saying me. I'm saying when you have done people wrong, you have done of people wrong. To see him on his knees begging like that, I would say something, but the LGBT community will be after me, so you'll never hear me say it. So I don't want to get in trouble with it, but bro, I'm happier than a barrel of D to see him like that. On Monday, Diddy's defense team sent a letter to Judge Aaron Subramanian asking him to recommend that the Bureau of Prisons place Diddy at FCI Fort Dix, a massive low-security federal prison in southern New Jersey. Attorney Tenny Geragos wrote that Fort Dix would allow Diddy to address drug abuse issues while also maximizing family visitation and rehabilitation. The facility offers a well-known treatment program called ARDAP, or the Residential Drug Abuse Program. A 9 to 12-month intensive course designed to help inmates rebuild and reduce their sentences by up to a year. For someone serving around 3 more years, that can make a big difference. Gandil, however, believes Diddy is beyond rehabilitation. He might simply be too far gone, and Gene thinks he got what he deserved. God is good. I don't have no sympathy. I never have sympathy for somebody who was trying to take me from mine, you understand. Was he thinking about when he was telling people to get at Big Gene to do this to Big Gene? Was he thinking about what if them dudes would have did that? Would he been thinking about me? Nah bro, would he broke down and start crying for me? Nah bro, I don't have no sympathy for him to see him like that. I know God is good and God showed him he can make you. He can break you, and I must say it again, you might get flagged for this. I'm happier than a barrel of dick, bro, don't.